The ending of Foundation Season 3 didn't just close one chapter, it cracked the galaxy wide open. Power shifted, loyalties broke, and visions of the future cast a long shadow over everything we thought we knew. Some characters met heartbreaking fates, others stepped into unexpected roles, and a new force looms on the horizon that could undo Hari Seldon's grand plan itself. If you thought the fall of the Empire was inevitable, Season 3 reminds us that the future is never set in stone. Season 3 of Foundation built slowly toward a climax and was both shocking and deeply emotional. At the center of it all was the Foundation itself, struggling to survive as the weight of Hari Seldon's psychohistory pressed down on every decision. By the final episodes, the battle between destiny and choice reached a boiling point. The Foundation had always been positioned as humanity's hope, a spark of knowledge meant to outlast the Empire's decline. But Season 3 reminded us that survival is never guaranteed. The closing chapters showed us how fragile that dream truly is. One of the most striking parts of the finale was the state of the Empire. The genetic dynasty, once unshakable in its control, now feels more fractured than ever. The Cleons stood on the edge of collapse, their claim to divine power eroded by betrayal in fighting and the relentless march of history. Where earlier seasons made the Cleons seem eternal, Season 3 proved they are as vulnerable as any other ruling family. Their downfall isn't just political. It is personal, driven by pride, fear, and the weight of centuries of repetition. Watching the cracks widen gave the sense that history itself is turning against them. But it wasn't just the rulers of the galaxy who faced tragedy. Salvor Hardin's journey came to a devastating conclusion. Her sacrifice struck at the heart of the story, reminding viewers that even the most capable heroes are not safe from destiny. Her death wasn't just about shock value. It was a symbolic moment that underlined the theme of giving everything for the hope of tomorrow. Salvor's loss was deeply felt, both by Gaal and the audience, because it wasn't just a character dying, it was a dream, a possibility, a branch of the future being cut short. The show lingered on the impact of her absence, letting us feel the void she left behind. Meanwhile, Gaal Dornick continued to wrestle with her visions of what lies ahead. In the final moments, she stood as the key to connecting the dots between past, present, and future. Her struggle is no longer about understanding psychohistory. It's about confronting a destiny that seems to demand more from her than anyone else. The weight on her shoulders grew heavier as she faced not only the memory of Salvor, but also the terrifying knowledge of the Mule's rise. Gaal's visions painted a future where the galaxy could be consumed by chaos, where all the sacrifice might be for nothing. The fear in her eyes told us that she sees what's coming, but also that she might not have the power to stop it. Hari Seldon himself, or at least the echoes of him, played a quieter but still powerful role in the ending. His presence remains like a ghost guiding events, raising the question of whether psychohistory is still in control, or if it has already been thrown off course. Is Hari's plan still unfolding as designed, or has the unpredictable force of human choice already reshaped it beyond recognition? The finale didn't answer that, but it left the door wide open for us to wonder. And then, of course, there is the Mule. The final hints of his looming presence cast a long shadow over everything. His arrival isn't just another villain's entrance. It is the suggestion that psychohistory itself can be broken. A figure like the Mule, unpredictable and uncontrollable, is the nightmare Hari always feared. The closing moments promise that he will not just be a threat to individuals, but to the entire shape of history. In that sense, Season 3 didn't end. It warned us of the storm that is about to begin. So when the credits rolled, what we were left with wasn't closure, but a galaxy in flux. Empires falling, heroes dying, visions of doom, and a mysterious force that could change everything. It was the perfect setup for Season 4, leaving us unsettled, curious, and desperate to know what happens next. At its core, Foundation Season 3 wasn't just about battles, betrayals, or even the survival of the Empire. It was about the deeper forces that shape history. The show has always wrestled with huge questions. Can the future be predicted? Can individuals matter against the tide of destiny? Is power ever truly permanent? The finale pulled these threads together, making us question not only where the story is headed, but also what the story is really trying to say. The first and most striking theme is fate versus free will. Psychohistory, Hari Seldon's great invention, is built on the idea that the actions of villains can be predicted with mathematical certainty, as long as you don't zoom into closely on individuals. Yet Season 3 repeatedly showed us the cracks in this system. Characters like Salvor Hardin and Gaal proved that personal choices still matter, even when the weight of destiny pushes against them. Salvor's death wasn't in the plan, at least not in a way that could be charted by equations. But it changed everything for Gaal. It shifted her path and reminded us that even in a galaxy dominated by numbers, one person can still bend the future. This is where the Mule becomes terrifying, because if one individual can ripple the plan, what happens when someone with powers beyond imagination arrives? The second theme is the fragility of power. The Cleons were designed to embody stability, perfect copies, repeating through the centuries, ruling without interruption. But Season 3 revealed that this supposed perfection is actually a weakness. The very act of cloning, the insistence on repeating the same man forever, led to stagnation and cracks that no empire can survive. Instead of eternal strength, it created a cycle of vanity and paranoia. The Cleons in this season were shadows of their former selves, fighting each other, questioning their legitimacy, and proving that no dynasty, no matter how carefully engineered, can last forever. The collapse of the empire isn't just a political plotline. It's a warning about the dangers of trying to freeze time, of believing that control can last forever. Another theme that stood out is legacy and sacrifice. Characters like Salvor and even Hari Seldon embody this. Salvor gave her life not for immediate victory, but for the hope that someone else, Gaal, or perhaps the Foundation itself, could continue the fight. Hari sacrificed his body and identity long ago, leaving behind only an echo of himself to guide humanity. These sacrifices remind us that the story of Foundation is generational. It's not about a single hero saving the day, but about the long chain of people who each give something to keep humanity alive. Season 3 drove that home by showing that victories are temporary. But the willingness to sacrifice for the greater good is what actually keeps history moving forward. And then there is prophecy and the rise of the Mule. From the beginning, Gaal's visions set her apart. But in the finale, those visions became warnings of something far more dangerous. The Mule isn't just another warlord or political enemy. He represents chaos, the very thing psychohistory cannot account for. In Gaal's visions, the Mule is a figure who bends reality itself through his psychic powers, a man who can undo Hari's entire plan simply by existing. His arrival is foreshadowed as a kind of cosmic disaster, not a storm you can predict with numbers, but an earthquake that breaks the ground beneath those numbers. The theme here is clear. No matter how much we try to calculate and control, there will always be forces that resist prediction. The Mule isn't just a character. He's a living symbol of unpredictability. But perhaps the most haunting theme woven into the finale is the burden of knowledge. Gaal knows more than anyone else about what's coming, but that knowledge isolates her. She sees the future, but she can't always change it. She carries the weight of knowing what her friends, her allies, and even the galaxy might face. Yet she also knows that her choices could alter those futures in ways she can't fully control. This theme touches on something deeply human, the fear of seeing too much, of carrying truths that others aren't ready to hear. In Gaal, the show gave us a character who isn't just a prophet. She's someone who suffers under the weight of visions that may or may not be possible to prevent. All of these themes, fate and free will, fragile power, sacrifice, prophecy, and the burden of knowledge came together in the final episodes to create a sense that Season 3 wasn't just ending a story. It was opening up bigger questions about what the story is really about. It's not only about the fall of the Empire or the rise of the Foundation. It's about how humanity confronts forces larger than itself, about whether hope can survive when destiny feels like a trap, and about whether history is something we create or something we endure. By the time the credits rolled, the galaxy felt both vast and intimate. Vast, because entire empires and centuries were shifting. Intimate, because in the middle of all that, the fate of everything seemed to rest on the choices of a handful of characters. That balance between the cosmic and the personal is what made Season 3's ending so powerful, and it's why the themes still echo long after the final scene. One of the reasons Foundation stands apart from most sci-fi shows is the way it hides meaning inside the smallest details. Season 3 didn't just tell a story about battles and betrayals. It wove clues, symbols, and echoes of Asimov's original novels into the fabric of almost every scene. Some of these details are easy to miss, but when you put them together, they form a deeper picture of where the show has been and where it might be going. Let's start with the most obvious layer, the repeated use of mirrors and reflections. Throughout the season, we saw characters literally and figuratively facing their own doubles. For the Cleons, this was most direct. Every clone was a mirror of the original Cleon, a reflection of power that grows more distorted with each new generation. But this symbolism goes further. Gaal sees versions of herself across timelines, and Salvor carries the weight of being both daughter and protector. Even Seldon is a kind of reflection, no longer the man he was, but a projection of memory, an echo made flesh. The mirrors remind us that identity in this universe is never stable. You are always shadowed by who came before, by the version of yourself you could have been, or by the future you might still become. Another subtle but powerful symbol is the language of dreams and visions. Season 3 leaned heavily on Gaal's ability to see forward, but it wasn't just about prophecy. Dreams in Foundation are a way of bending time. They collapse the boundary between past, present, and future. When Gaal dreams of the Mule, it is not only a warning, it's a reminder that knowledge itself can be a burden. These visions don't give her clarity. They fill her with dread. Dreams become symbols of uncertainty, showing that seeing the future is not the same as controlling it. The writers use this device not just to foreshadow what's coming, but to explore the emotional weight of foresight. There's also the recurring imagery of decay and rebirth. The Empire, once spotless and eternal, is now riddled with cracks both literal and symbolic. We see palaces rotting at the edges, technology breaking down, and leaders who no longer inspire awe but suspicion. At the same time, the Foundation is framed as something new, fragile but alive, growing from the ruins of the old. This cycle of collapse and renewal mirrors Asimov's grand design. History is not a straight line, but a repeating pattern of falls and rises. The show made this visible in its settings, contrasting the cold, sterile halls of Empire with the messy, vibrant communities of the Foundation. Fans of Asimov's novels will also notice whispers of the second Foundation hidden in the season. These were not spelled out directly, but subtle clues hinted at forces working behind the scenes. Characters often spoke of unseen influences, of strings being pulled from the shadows. Small lines of dialogue, questions about whether events were truly random, or whether someone was guiding them, nod to the idea that a secret group of mentalics may already be active. The show seems to be teasing the audience, planting seeds for a reveal that could dominate future seasons. Another layer of symbolism comes from the way time itself is treated. Unlike most shows, Foundation doesn't fear huge time jumps. Characters sleep for decades, empires rise and fall in the background, and history keeps moving no matter how personal the stories feel. Season 3 doubled down on this idea, making us feel how small individuals are against the scale of centuries. Yet, at the same time, it emphasized how those small moments, a single choice, a single sacrifice, can echo across that massive stretch of time. Time becomes both a cage and a canvas, reminding us that history is painted by both inevitability and accident. The Mule himself is rich in symbolic meaning, even before he fully enters the story. He is introduced not through action, but through fear. Through the visions of Gaal, his name alone carries weight. A mule is a creature that should not exist, a hybrid without the ability to reproduce, a break in the natural order. That symbolism is perfect for this character. The Mule stands for disruption, for something that psychohistory cannot account for. Just as a mule defies the rules of nature, the mule defies the rules of Hari's equations. His very existence is a metaphor for unpredictability, the wild card in a universe obsessed with patterns. Even the visual design of the season carried symbolic touches. The Empire's golden, symmetrical halls contrasted with the Foundation's rough, uneven settlements. The Empire's setting screamed permanence, but the cracks showed us that nothing is eternal. The Foundation's world, on the other hand, looked fragile, temporary, but alive, constantly changing. This visual contrast told the story without needing words. The Empire is decaying from the inside, while the Foundation is growing, unstable yet full of possibility. Finally, the biggest hidden detail lies in the way the show connects all these symbols back to the central question: who controls the future? The reflections remind us that we are shaped by those who came before. The dreams show us that even if we see the future, we may not escape it. The decay and rebirth imagery points to history as a cycle, and the mule represents the chaos that breaks all cycles. Together, these details give the sense that the ending of Season 3 wasn't just about what happened in the story. It was a coded message about what's coming next. Season 3 left us not only with a cliffhanger, but with a gallery of symbols that point in every direction, backward to the books, forward to future storylines, and inward to the deeper questions of identity, destiny, and power. These are the details that make Foundation more than just a show about space empires. They make it a story about us, about how we face the unknown, how we carry the weight of the past, and how we dare to imagine the future. The ending of Foundation Season 3 wasn't just a conclusion. It was an open invitation for speculation. The pieces on the board have shifted in ways that make the future of the galaxy more uncertain than ever. Season 4 promises to answer some of these burning questions, but for now, we're left with clues, hints, and possibilities. The fun lies in pulling those threads together and asking, where does the story go from here? The biggest theory centers on the mule's rise to power. In Asimov's books, the mule is one of the most dangerous figures in the galaxy's history, a mutant with extraordinary psychic powers who bends entire populations to his will. The show has been teasing his arrival for 2 seasons, and Season 3 finally gave us a glimpse of him through Gaal's visions. What makes the mule terrifying isn't just his strength, but the way he exists outside the predictions of psychohistory. Hari's plan is built on the assumption that no single person can change the direction of humanity's future. The mule breaks that rule. If Season 4 leans into this, we may see the entire Foundation shaken to its core. A war against the mule wouldn't just be military. It would be philosophical. Can destiny survive someone who embodies chaos? Another strong theory is the emergence of the Second Foundation. For book readers, this is one of the most anticipated storylines, and the show has been quietly planting seeds. The Second Foundation is a hidden group of mentalics, people with psychic abilities, working behind the scenes to protect Hari's plan. If Season 3 gave us hints, then Season 4 could bring the reveal. Imagine the dramatic irony. While the mule tears at the fabric of history from one side, the Second Foundation tries to stitch it back together from the other. This would create a new layer of conflict, not just between good and evil, but between competing visions of how the future should unfold. Are the Second Foundation heroes, or are they manipulators playing God? That's a question Season 4 could explore in depth. The fall of the Cleons also looms large. Season 3 showed us the dynasty at its weakest point, fractured and paranoid. The clones who once looked eternal now appear fragile, their claim to divinity slipping through their fingers. Season 4 may finally show the dynasty breaking apart completely. If that happens, the galaxy loses the false stability of empire. Power vacuums form, rebellions ignite, and the story becomes more chaotic than ever. But here's where the theory gets interesting. What if one of the Cleons survives and reinvents himself, breaking free from the genetic cycle to become a unique ruler? That twist would tie directly into the show's themes of identity and destiny. The dynasty could end, but one Cleon might still cast a long shadow. Seldon's role in the future is another question mark. We've seen multiple echoes of him, a digital consciousness, a projection, a ghostly advisor. But is Hari truly gone? Or is there another version of him waiting to reappear? A bold theory suggests that Hari himself may have accounted for the Mule all along, leaving hidden instructions or another backup plan for the Foundation to discover in Season 4. This would reframe the entire story, making us wonder if Hari is still the puppeteer behind the curtain, or if his plan has already slipped beyond even his control. There's also the matter of alliances and new wars. With the Empire crumbling, the Mule rising, and the Foundation caught in the middle, Season 4 could become a story of shifting loyalties. Will the Foundation join forces with former enemies just to survive? Could splinter groups within the Empire try to seize power, sparking civil war? The galaxy is now a chessboard where every move matters, and Season 4 could show us unlikely partnerships forming against the greater threat. Imagine the irony of parts of the old Empire and the Foundation. Once sworn enemies must work together to resist the Mule.